And we're back. Welcome, everybody, to episode 3 of the .gg podcast. We're here with Kobe, Jeremy, and Patrick. The main focus for today is going over a tier list for all the new starter decks. That's 23 to 28. We're going to do 3 different tier lists. 1 is going to be competitive, 2 is going to be building for locals using the deck, and the 3rd will be straight out of the box. Shall we jump right into it?
Right, so we're starting for competitive. So the idea here is really for players who want to go to, like, let's say like a regionals, or they want to play like treasure cups online, or they're just like really serious about their locals and they want to win their locals.
Yeah.
And so it's like, the idea is like, what do you buy as a competitive player, as someone who maybe has like multiple colors going, you're someone who changes decks often. It's not like, you know, you're just a black player and you're just going to get the black starter deck, but you're someone who's constantly changing, constantly shifting. Like where do you begin to parse like kind of these 6 leaders?
Yeah, and like for more competitive players, like you're going to this kind of knowing that like there are 2 things about starter decks you should know. One is like if you want 4 copies of a card from a starter deck, you're gonna have to buy 2 because the SR that's in it comes in 2s. And there are certain cards in the deck that will also come in 2s too. So like if you're a competitive player, you're going into this tier list is for, you know, if you're going into it with the knowledge that I am taking pieces from this and I'm going to build the deck and I'm going to try to be competitive. And I know that I'm in more than just this to really get to the highest tier of play.
Yeah. And with like the coming events and the fact that we're getting these starter decks now, which means that we're going to have an entirely different OP11 meta.
Yeah.
I think like if you're a competitive player, like you probably are going to want to pick these up as soon as possible. One strategy that people tend to do is they'll say, okay, I'll wait for a couple weeks and then buy singles. But I think with how new this meta is, I don't actually think that's going to work. I don't think singles will be available for at least a month or 2. So I think it actually is kind of a puzzling decision. I was myself puzzling over which ones to get because I just think the singles, especially for the Blackbeard ones and some of the other ones, are going to be really hard to find early on.
Yep.
And so you might have to try and go to either a starter deck battle or really find them out there in the wild.
Yeah, I mean, I remember like when the first set of starter decks came out last time with the run of like the Dofis and everything, because we'd seen what happened in Japan, like we saw everyone wanted like the Dofi one and the purple Luffy one, and like it was very clear. But we're going in completely fresh. There'll be no tournament results to look at for the first little bit.
Yeah.
That like it's anyone's guess. But we still have a pretty good guess at what's going to be competitive.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay, what is that guess based off of?
What is that?
That's a good question.
Oh.
We both just looked at each other. It's how I feel today. It's a mix of my feelings.
I checked my horoscope and then I was like, oh, blue is in.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of hype based off, I mean, like our past 2 videos, we went over all these cards that came out, and some of them were a lot more exciting than others, to say the least, right? So maybe it's just the feeling and the potential of like how things play out. But in reality, we're not quite sure the details of, you know, from turn to turn how things will actually go. But so let's go from, I guess, just color order here.
Yeah.
Shanks, how does this feel?
Ooh.
As for Shanks, right? That's
Nah.
That might be controversial.
Yeah. I
C for controversial.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
There we go.
I think we put C for controversial. I think there's some jokes about this really being an RP Outta starter deck, but then they just didn't want to print another Outta deck.
Yeah.
But a lot of the pieces, just like for competitive play, the downside is like these cards aren't quite good enough to replace existing things in Shanks. And if you're trying to get this to play Shanks, it's not giving you a bunch of really new pieces for that. Yes, the Outta is good, but the Outta actually can't even be played in Shanks because it's filmed, so it's not searchable. We talked about this before. That Shanks interesting, but once again, you have to find space for it, and there's just a lot of really other good drops that I don't see this being like, if you're really trying to be a really competitive Shanks player, I don't see this as being like a make or break starter deck that you have to get. I feel like there's other red cards that you try to go for first. And if any, you just test first with this before you really kind of commit to like trying to get this. Now, if you're a competitive player though, and you can really afford it, then like you want to, then go for it. But I think this ranks pretty low on my list of important red cards to get for playing meta.
Yeah, I agree. It's very low on my list. And the only way I really see it being viable is if we get this wild, like really wild meta where like actually it turns out that UP Luffy isn't dominant because, I don't know, Buggy counters it, or there's just like everyone's on Bello Betty, and then somehow Shanks ekes its way in a little bit, and then Another way is like if there's a rise of like purple Luffy as well,
Yeah.
or even like black purple Luffy, these decks that kind of ramp, then maybe we could see that Shanks see play.
Yeah.
But the overall problem with Shanks Leader, as we've mentioned, is that it's not very consistent, and this doesn't make it any more consistent. And it has some kind of middling turns as well. It's really dependent on Lucky Roof, or it's like that's like its entire mid game right now. And so this starter deck doesn't address those issues.
Yeah.
And so I think if you're a competitive player, you'll probably want to stay away from this. And even if you're planning to play Shanks at OP11, I think you could hold off on this one. I don't actually think it's going to be necessary. I think Shanks builds that adapt for OP11 will probably have to be aggressive because you don't want to go late against UP. And so I think like you can just hold off safely.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, I'm quite happy with C as a baseline. So I guess relative to that, how does Bonney feel?
B for bonney.
B for bonney.
Okay.
We were really like buying.
We have a really simple start
Like
here.
I said, the horoscope was telling me what to say.
Yeah, I mean, this one we really have to see how it plays out. Like the 10 drop is cool. It really is. And it's searchable. And so I think like it really adds a lot of consistency to Bonney. I think if you're planning to play Bonney, I do think you should pick it up.
Yep.
I think you're going to want to experiment with these cards. You'll be really sad if you don't buy it, and you see all the Bonnies out there on Twitter. They're like, "Oh, I'm using this." So I think if you're a competitive green player, I would consider it. But I think if you're just a competitive player in general, and you're thinking about what roster of decks do you want to have at the ready to play, I don't think you need this to make Bonney viable in the current meta. I think these are just tools that widen the deck, they broaden it, but they don't necessarily kind of like raise it to a new tier or to a new level.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree completely. I think it definitely just increases the width of the deck. I think only thing to note is like if you're planning to play GY Law, which we don't know how good it'll be, that Kid and Killer actually does fit in really nicely into GY Law, and you're gonna like when you're gonna want to play it because it can potentially replace your Carmel, or you can even just run this and Carmel. It just gives you another searcher, another thing to shambles back to your hand and play off your life, or and then play off something off your life.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the card that I think is like the most competitive facing is actually the Searcher.
That's true. Yes, and it gets you to 5 faster. Is the important thing. So it's actually better than Bonney. So it can allow you to kind of start your leader ability more rapidly. Yeah. And so I think I think green yellow is pretty hyped right now. So I do think if you're planning to go that route, I think you actually do have to pick this up. Yeah. Again, how competitive that deck will be in the format remains to be seen. So I don't think this gets it into like even a B or an A tier.
Yeah. So still solid B.
Because I want to think about where Law and where Bonney are going to fall in the current meta as well.
That makes sense. So
B
solid
for Bonney.
B. B for Bonney.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll leave it at B because it's higher than C. And we're not feeling as good as Shanks, right? Like,
B's higher than C?
I mean, this is all relative, right?
Take. Okay.
But I feel like the way this is going, I'm going to put Buggy in S.
Oh.
B for... Yeah, no, I think this one was like, we're really debating. I think like we can safely put it at A for sure. Like I think that's a safe place to put it. Like my gut is saying that only because like this is like, well, actually, no, sorry. What do we say about this? We said that it has potential, but there's no way to know.
Yeah.
But it has a lot of pieces of, getting towards that competitiveness, like, a really good body that cheats out another body, a lot of cycling, like, I don't know.
Yeah,
like
it's really hard. I mean, it needs to be tested. Yeah. So I think A is good, but it's like a tentative A. Yeah. We're putting it A. That could even be a little bit controversial. You could say. Like we're investing in Buggy a little bit here. Yeah. But I think there's a couple of things that happen. One, he has protection, which Lucci will be in the meta. So that was always a big problem for Buggy. Is like my goal is to play a bunch of bodies, and Lucci KOs all my bodies, so I can't do that. So now you can do that. Your going second curve has been fixed. I've seen people theorizing online that this might actually have a good matchup into UP Luffy, and that's just because it can flood the board, and then UP can't really deal with 10-12s that well as just like a bunch of swings, and it's easy to get like a bunch of 6s out there. So this is a neat one. So I personally grabbed 2. So I'm invested because I really wanted to test this because I really do think Buggy might actually just kind of join those 4 Emperors tier. He's always been the one who just like didn't do anything. He was really like not doing much.
Now it's their time. This is their arc. So this is when it's happening.
Yeah.
But it has a lot of the pieces that you need for like getting towards that competitive deck where they're really giving it big pieces and changes. And yeah, I mean like I would say tentative A is good. It might be a hot take, but like if there's a time to try it, it would be now. Yeah.
Yeah. it's got like it's got defense, it's got consistency, like so much card cycle, so much searchability. Like it really is like becoming its own thing. Like it's its own like standalone deck that does the things the deck wants to do, and then gets to run like Red Rock or gets to run 7-cost event and some of those like really powerful blue removal cards. And so I think that combined with the searchability of the buggy engine makes it a really viable deck.
Yep.
Makes sense.
And if it does underperform, we're going to try our best to make it work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're going to make Otta happy.
Yeah.
All right, Luffy here, purple black. How do y'all feel about this?
This is another tricky one. It's one, okay, so there's kind of two dimensions here. I think the first dimension is like the deck in and of itself as improvements for purple black Luffy.
Yeah.
That needs to be tested as well. Like, so it's kind of in a similar place to buggy, where these changes to purple black, they really need to be ironed out, because that's a complicated deck. The list, it's tricky, like to make a list for this deck. And so I think that's another one that I'm kind of really interested in seeing what people are going to cook up, because it has a lot of potential. The other piece of it is whether this Luffy is viable in decks like GP, and the impact it could also have on the meta. So I think it's a kind of a mix of both.
Yeah, because I think Black Pearl's always tough, because like how the black side of it is actually the tough part to balance, because it feels like back then you were running it for Gecko and for some other things and Ice Age, but without those things, it's really awkward because you're really only running the black side of the deck for Sanji, for the Sanji that KOs from the starter deck. So it's harder to place how this deck will look now going forward, and there's still good bombs, but then it's not always exactly like it's not really quite blended in with the rest of it. So I think it'll be good in those pieces, and I put it. I would be comfortable putting it at B. I hesitant to put it any higher because I really do think it has to be solved and figured out. And yeah, I think, but like there's potential there, but I wouldn't rush too much into it. But then again, like if you are a person who plans to play those purple Luffy decks, it probably won't hurt you to pick some of these up just in case.
Yeah, and like it's one where like I grabbed one of them because I think the Luffy has potential.
You might run it as a 2-up.
I might run it.
Straw Hat's searchable anyway, so you may not even need 4.
Yeah, but it definitely needs, like, there's so much potential. Like we were just talking through some of the lines today, and like how quickly you can actually get out that 6-drop Luffy and become a 7K leader. It's just like it completely changes the dynamic of the deck. And as you were saying, like you actually stop ramping if you do that, right? Because it's 2 on every turn, and you play a different style. And so whether that's actually good or not remains to be seen. But it really, like, it's interesting in the context of our current meta, where we're going to be seeing, I think, a lot of Yamato, we're going to be seeing a lot of Bello Betty. I think people will be on Zoro. Like, so I do think like there are some neat niches that this deck can fill, and then that Luffy specifically can fill. So it's cool. It's like, keep an eye on it. But again, I think if you're a competitive player and you don't have this, I don't think you're going to be at some major loss.
Yeah, and you'll probably still be able to pick it up. Because like these cards will be very specific to these types of Luffy decks, because they all involve the -2. They're probably going to be played in either GP or Black Purple, but not much else. So you're not going to have to worry too much about, oh, this is like a staple for Pluffy and BP and like GP and all those things. So
and I think if it ends up being played in GP, it would only be a 2-up. I can't see there being room for more than that. So you would be fine with one starter deck. And as we tend to know, like the starter decks that people only need one of tend to be around, and you can get them. So I wouldn't run to the shop to buy this unless you really want to cook with it.
Sounds good. Yeah. All right.
Makes sense to me. Marshall D. Teach. This guy's feeling pretty strong, no?
Yeah.
S.
Yeah.
Cool. We'll start with S.
Yeah. I mean, how much do you okay, already a really great deck. Its whole power is flexibility and its ability to respond to the meta, its ability to just play these really controlling lines, the predictability and consistency of the deck. Now the deck is just getting more tools. I think that's just like if you're a person who plays Blackbeard, you want every tool at your disposal, regardless of how much you're gonna play it. Like you just want access to all of it because of how strong this deck is.
Yeah, and I think like like there's kind of everyone's kind of debating what's good. Like is the Kuzan it, or is it like the new blocker? The fact that you can just establish a blocker on 4 that will probably stay for a long time. That's going to stop all of 5 swings for the rest of the game and can eventually swing. Is it that? Is it having this new the new Teach, right? That's kind of like a Jack that gives you a lot of utility. That you can hit like very interesting numbers with Tempest Kick. So there's an argument you put Tempest Kick back in the deck, and then you run this Teach, and all of a sudden you're popping like 4-drops, no problem, as well as hitting bigger numbers if you've established Augurs. He can swing, he can KO leftover dot Qs. So there's a lot of debate. I've heard like from different Blackbeard players, different things about what's good. But I think actually what's good to me, 100% is the Katarina. And so I think no matter what, I think that's going in the deck. And as Blackbeard players know, there's just always turns where you're like, I wish I could just -1 more. And this lets you do that. So it just, again, it's a 2K, searchable. So you're just going to throw it in, probably replacing Shiryu, like we mentioned last week. And then it's giving you that extra consistency in an already consistent deck that loses typically due to consistency. And so it's just, the more you make Blackbeard consistent, the more you give it options, the scarier it gets. And I'm going to check. I can't remember. Is it 2 or 4 that you get of that? I think it's 2, right? I'm just going to check right now.
Oh, we shuffled the deck.
Oh, I shuffled it.
1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, there you go.
Okay, so you only need 1 copy of the deck if you want to get your Katarinas. So that's worth. I think that's actually really important to note because some of these other cards, like the Kuzan, you might not actually play more than 2 of. And similarly with the Teach, you also might not play more than 2, maybe 3. So you could probably get away with just 1. I think most Blackbeard players are going to be buying 2 because they want to test all of this stuff out. But it's certainly the starter deck that like everyone is talking about with a deck that was already competitive. So I think it just has to go in S tier, and I don't think you can put it anywhere else.
It's already a competitive leader, a lot of competitive pieces. I agree.
Blackbeard's too strong.
All
right, last but not least, Yamato.
Ooh, this one I think we were talking about if it was like I think it could be in that A tier, and then it potentially could push to S. It depends on what really happens in this meta and like how the overall meta looks. Because Yamato can punish certain leaders really, really well with that double attack, and even with like the banish. There's a lot of ways to kind of like punish 3 health leaders or just low health leaders in general because you can really drain their hand size. Lot of really great cards in here. A lot of interesting pieces like in the form of searchers, mid-range bodies, blockers, 2Ks, just a whole bunch of different things here. I really believe in all the support that Yamato is getting, and I really think how well it does really depends on if someone can find the list and what the spread of the meta will look like. That's why I wouldn't put it anywhere higher than this, but I do actually have a lot of faith in this deck just because there's a lot of pressure in a way, like a lot of ways that Yamato can sack just certain decks. And people will be like, oh, like I remember playing BY into this, I was like, why did I face a Yamato? Like why is this so cursed? And that could happen, you know?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's like it's very similar to the buggy where I think it could go either way. You could put it in A, it could go into B. I think we just really have to see. But I do think, given the way the meta is looking to shape up, I do think we're going to see a lot of people on Yamato. And so I do think it will be a competitive deck. I'm still torn because it's hard to put it like below, like when we're looking at this and we're putting like buggy and Yamato, which are like unproven, below something like bonney, which is like proven. But I do think that I think the support is strong enough that we will see people playing it. I think at these competitive events that are coming up, like the regional events this month, I think we're going to see people on Yamato, and I think we're going to see people on buggy. And I think we're going to see people on bonney, but they're going to be already competitive. So really the reason these are higher than that is because I think they're making decks that are not currently competitive. And I think you definitely, if you're a competitive player, you need to know what these decks do. You need to be ready for them because you're going to face somebody playing them.
And you're not gonna know what's the thing, like what's the misplay. You're not gonna know what was my mistake here. Cool. I think we had 2 more we had to do like that. So we quickly restack this. So okay, now let's say you're not a competitive player and you're just trying to build, like you're starting at locals and you want a deck that you can bring to locals and slowly upgrade over time. I think it looks pretty similar to this, but I think what was the thing that we said? I think it was it looks still pretty similar, but then we put actually, I think it actually ends up being basically this again.
It's pretty much the same. Like if you're somebody who wants to get into competitive, right? You've just started playing One Piece. Maybe you're like a month in, 2 months in. You've played around a little bit, and you're like, okay, I want to build like a deck that will be competitive in this format, and I want to start using one of these starter decks or 2 of these starter decks as my base. And so our thinking here was that okay, so Blackbeard, yes. If you buy 2 Blackbeards, you're well on your way, and the other SRs are not too expensive to get. So it's very minimal investment to go from these 2 starter decks to a full Blackbeard deck that's competitively viable that you can actually top an event with. However, Blackbeard is very, very hard to play. And Blackbeard requires knowledge of every single other deck out there. And this is going to be the hardest time to play Blackbeard because this is an untested meta where we don't have data from Japan about what to do or what anyone's going to be running. So it's really, really a tough deck. So I do think it's S. I think it stays in S. But it's still like, there's an argument, I think, for putting it in A just because of its difficulty to pick up. And I think it's also a bait deck where if somebody was kind of new and they're like, oh yeah, I'm playing Blackbeard, I would almost always tell them not to. Because Blackbeard doesn't really teach you the fundamentals of One Piece specifically. So even if you're coming in with other card game fundamentals, One Piece has its own set of fundamentals that have a lot to do with Dawn math and Dawn management, as well as like reading people's hands and swinging. And you don't really do that as Blackbeard. You play your own game and you swing 12s at the end. And so for that reason, I think A to S.
Yes, because we don't want to like mislead players who are new and like be like, oh, I can start playing this and become competitive. It's like, yes, you can, but Blackbeard, very high skill cap deck, so it may not be the best one to start with. That being said, I think looking at this in a new light of like, okay, it's for people who are going to locals and trying to build this deck from scratch. I think the buggy and the Yamato go up a tier because those are actually very good bases to start from. The buggy, the SRs in order to improve the deck are very cheap. They're very affordable. A lot of the things you need already come in the buggy starter deck. You have to get 2 of them to get the full set of SRs and stuff. But really, the deck will be very affordable to build. And like I said, there's potential in it. And there are people who are already playing it. But now you're getting even more pieces into it. So the SRs will be cheap. And it'll be a great way for you to start. There'll be some good matchups for it, too. Same with Yamato for the same reasons, too. Because there are maybe 4 or 5 different builds of Yamato. There's Fortress. There's Sky Island. There's Wano Package. You'll find the right one for you. But likewise, all those cards are really cheap too. You don't have to worry too much about it, and you can try many different vectors for how to build your Yamato deck. So I think it's also a really great deck too. Well, those are my thoughts on Yamato and Buggy.
100%. Yeah, so I like that. So I think Buggy and Yamato go in S. I think Buggy, I would give a similar caution to teach. He's not quite as complicated, but again, you're playing like your own kind of game of One Piece here, where you're cheating out bodies to try and get this big body out. And then you're going to be running some blue removal cards. And it's really important to know when to use those. Like the timing for removal is very important. But I actually would say like if Teach is like hard difficulty, Buggy's medium difficulty, and Yamato is probably easy difficulty relative to each other. And so I think on the flip side, Yamato is a really good starting point. I've actually seen a lot of new players on Yamato just like in the past as a good deck to start with. One reason is that you can high roll people and just win, which is always nice. Like it's fun to win when you're going to locals and you're just starting with a deck.
Good motivation to
And you have a good high roll there that some of these other decks don't have. Like even if you high roll with Teach, you still have to execute.
Yes.
Whereas with Yamato, your high roll, you can just kind of win, which is good. It's nice to have that. But there's also, I think, a fair bit of skill expression. You actually get to learn, swinging the correct numbers. You're always playing this interesting game where because people take your leader swing, they actually always have a lot of cards in hand. And so you're always kind of up against somebody with a lot of cards. And so how you math out your turns really matters as Yamato. So there's a lot to learn there. I think it's a bit meatier than Buggy in terms of the learning curve. But we still have to see kind of how they shape up. So I think either of these or both of them could be really, really viable decks. And I think like scope them out, watch our previous videos for the cards, and then see which one you like more if you're considering between the two of them.
Yeah. I think the only other thing that we can do is in this situation, you bump Shanks from C down to D.
Yes.
Okay, if you are trying to play locals and eventually be competitive, and you are starting from the Shanks starter deck, the truth is Shanks, all the important pieces for Shanks are not in the starter deck. You will have to get many other pieces first before you even touch the starter deck. So caution, like if you're hearing that Shanks is a competitive deck and you think that buying the Shanks starter deck is the good starting point, it is not. You need all the other cards first. That's the hard part. So we have to note from C to D in this situation.
Yeah, no, I agree. And the thing is, like with Shanks, you need the Rayleighs; those are expensive.
Yeah.
And then there's an argument that Shanks won't even be competitive this meta. And so you're investing quite a lot for a deck that might not actually win against the potential best deck in the format. So I think that actually puts Shanks down. I think Bonney could also potentially go down because similarly, Bonney, you're missing Cavendishes, which are like just like so expensive right now. That once again, if you just buy the Bonney starter, you actually kind of are missing a lot of the things that Bonney needs, which is like you need Cavendish, you need your kids. And so I think Bonney could also potentially shift down one tier, and also her competitive viability. Not so sure about it. She doesn't have really good matchups into UP, Luffy, and Blackbeard, who are kind of the best decks theoretically. So I think she shifts down, and then that leaves us with the black-purple.
Yeah.
What do you think about black purple? I think actually it might be okay there.
It really depends. We haven't seen enough lists. We
Yeah.
can't know. This is like I could leave it at B. I could bump it down to C just to be fair to Bonney. I would say it's safe to drop it down to C because we don't know. We just don't know how. Will it be fun for locals? Yes.
Yeah.
Will you be able to take it further than that? Like as a starting point, we don't know yet.
Yeah, and
So-
you still need to buy some additional pieces. I don't know how expensive they are really, but you might need some Gear 5 Luffys.
Yeah. It won't be too expensive
Yeah.
because you're not competing for like the fluffy pieces.
Yeah.
Because Black Purple runs pretty unique lists, but we won't know yet. So that's where to see. That doesn't mean don't do it.
Yeah.
Because like if you're someone out there and you just love Bonney or Luffy and you want that to be your starting point, go for it. But this is just like a heads up so you know kind of what you're getting into and the challenge you'll be facing as you go into it. But if you want to, go for it.
Yeah, and it's worth noting too that like it is a Luffy deck, but it's not how I envision Luffy. Like,
Yeah.
it's not like a Luffy style deck. Like because you're always returning Dawn and you're getting back Dawn and you also like got black in there so you can remove stuff. It's not like you're not just like running in and punching things.
Yeah.
And because of that, it's also a little bit more complicated to play it as well. I think to play it optimally. Because it's a 4-life leader, and so as 4-life leaders, you're actually always kind of you're playing a harder game. You basically lost one card, and you have to make up for that with your leader ability. And so I don't think it's actually like
Yeah, it's gonna be frustrating at first when they're learning.
it's not the learning curve on it is quite high.
Yeah.
Because of that, Yamato's a little bit different as a 4-life leader because you're putting on so much
You're
pressure.
the aggressor. You're the aggressor.
But in this case, I think C is correct. I would shy away from it. I think the other 3 decks are all better choices.
Okay, I think my main takeaway here is that there are no B tier decks if you want to play locals.
Yes.
There are none.
Yep. I can agree
yeah.
with that. And then the last one, which I think maybe a decent portion of our audience is looking forward to, which one is best just out of the box?
Right. So we're talking about out of the box. Like we know a lot of you play at home. A lot of your collectors or people who just like play with your friends or family at home or your spouse or your partner. Patrick and I were testing and we were playing some decks. We found that Buggy and Bonney, we played that like two times. Very fun out of the box. They felt very evenly matched, and surprisingly, the 2 decks had a lot of intricacy, like not just in the combat, but in the cards and combos you could do, and the things you have to keep track of. There's a lot of things to keep track of, and they felt very even. I think because Bonney leader ability is so good that you just constantly have this power level that's kind of established, and then Buggy leader ability is really good, but the cards are also really good too. So you get this. I would say those 2 like. I would put them as S tier of like at home play. Like if you're just like looking to get 2 decks and just like play with friends and family, I think it's amazing. Yeah, it was so much fun for us playing.
Yeah, just like as we were testing, like I was playing Bonney. I'm like, there's so many options, which is really weird to say with the starter deck. And I'm like, there's a lot to keep in mind, and there's a lot of different ways I could actually approach the matchup.
Yeah.
So I think there's enough nuance here that you're going to get a lot of replayability out of these 2 decks. They work outside of the box. The one thing that I will note is I think it's worth maybe just mentioning Shanks here. I do think Shanks is the easiest to just pick up. And so if you're somebody who's like brand new, that's kind of what we're going for, and you want to just play with this deck out of the box, or like let's say like you've played and you want to introduce a friend or your partner or something like that, giving them Shanks is a really good option because I think Bonney with the leader effect is a little bit confusing and hard, and similarly, Buggy is also quite tricky, and there's a lot of cycling, where you actually have to know what to keep and what to take, which can be really difficult, whereas Shanks is a little bit more straightforward.
Yeah.
And so for that reason, I'm on the fence. I do actually think Shanks might be S.
Yeah.
Just because, again, out of the box, the deck just works. It's quite smooth. The leader effect is intuitive. And I also think Shanks will have great engagement with Bonney and great engagement with Buggy as well.
Yeah,
I think you could have some really fun
back and forth,
some really fun games with the Shanks deck.
I agree.
So yeah, I think actually those 3 all look good to me in this. Yeah.
And onto the ones that are not as great. Preferences so like Blackbeard and Yamato are good decks. You can play them out of the box. The reason we don't suggest as much for at-home play is because the 2 decks are going to feel potentially unfun to play against. They're going to be, for Blackbeard, it's going to be complicated, so it may not be the best if you're teaching someone who like is just picking up card games. And they have anti-fun mechanics in the form of like, you stop your opponents from doing certain things, which can be not the most fun at-home experience. Same with Yamato, you might get very straightforward binary games where you're just going down the path of I'm swinging, and then for the person who's receiving the swings, it may not be the most fun. But we did find that the decks for Buggy and Bonney included a fair number of blockers, so that may not be too problematic. I would say Yamato is a little better than Blackbeard. I probably put it like put them at like B or A, but probably closer.
I think A is fine for you.
A is fine. Just keep in mind, switch it up sometimes, because if you're just swinging with double tech all the time against your friend at home, it may not be the most fun for them, because it may be the same game multiple times over. And this is like Luffy. I don't know where we put him, but
so Luffy would be. I think Luffy's kind of similar to Teach.
Yeah.
Where you kind of need somebody experienced to pilot it. Yeah. And like, so for example, if you're an experienced player and you're looking for something for a newer player, you could play the Luffy yourself, and then buy like the bonney for the newer player. But if you're both newer players, I think there's too much going on with all of the returning Dawn and getting one active, and what does that mean? And what does it mean that it's rested? And like, there's just a lot of intricacy here that is just not present in something like Shanks, that can really pull you down. And so I think, again, and also you're a 4-life leader. And so because of that, you really, again, have to, like I said,
you might just lose against your friend playing Yamato on turn 2 or turn 3.
Like, it's just, So I think this is a great spread. Like, I kind of like where this is. And I think people should think too, I mean, we're saying like you're just buying 2 decks, but let's say you've already got like a Shanks and a bonney, and now you want to spice it up. Now I think, buy Yamato, buy Purple Black Luffy, buy Teach. Once you've already got that kind of baseline where where both the decks work and they're fun together, and now you want to like, okay, let's see what happens when we get a little bit more complex. And then I think just the final piece is that both Teach and Purple Black Luffy also kind of help prepare you for like your next level, right? Yeah. And so I think they're nice like second editions. I would not start with them. But if maybe you've already grabbed them and you're like, okay, I'm going to grab one more. I think any of those 3, you couldn't go wrong. But I would say like in that order. So I would say Yamato first, if you've already grabbed
the top 3.
The top 3.
Yeah. But enjoy your at-home play, guys.
Yeah.
I really like how Teach and Luffy look back to back here.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's sick.
It's like actually sick. So I think this brings us to the end of our tier list portion. Let us know if you agree or disagree. Of course, all this is speculative, which is very, very exciting. But as long as you have decent arguments for all of this, then, it all starts to make sense. Cool. Next up, we went to Anime North for our very first time and had an incredible experience. What do you think, guys?
Oh, yeah. Anime North was an absolute blast. We got to meet so many of you two. So many people, like so many fans of our store, supporters of our stores, came up and talked to us and met us. And it's so wonderful to meet you guys. It's actually so much fun. Not only is it great to have people see our things in person, just be like wowed by, like, sometimes I forget that. People are just like, see them and like, wow, this is how it looks like in real life. And then they're like, I see these online all the time, but I didn't want to buy because I didn't know what it looks like in real life. And then they saw it in person. They were like, oh, I'm getting this like right now. The moment they could like feel it and realize that we're not a Temu store, nothing wrong with Temu, but like that was one of the comments we get sometimes.
That's wild.
Yeah, they're like, is this a Temu store? Like, why is it so cheap? Or why is it like, it's like, oh yeah, well, we just want to make cool things for fans. But it was actually so nice meeting so many of you. And then we kind of on the fly created our like gym battle system. So you come to our booth and we're going to keep doing it. You can come to the booth and you can basically play against one of us. And if you win, you get to roll a dice for prizing. It was super fun because so many people came to challenge us and like play these really fun games. That ended up being like a whole portion of our time went to like these gym battles. But we were so happy to do it. And like you guys played so well that I even felt bad not letting you roll the dice for losing, that I just like, no, just roll the dice because like you earned it. You played this like crazy game, like just roll it. I would like prize like the Gear 5 Dawn and stuff and a whole bunch of other things that you could win from our like Treasure Cup and regional prizing that we've just collected over time. But yeah, Anime North was a blast and we are so excited to just like keep doing it and keep going to cons. So if you have some in your area, let us know. We would love to attend and like set up shop and do gym battles and stuff. But that was my perspective on it. I had such a blast. But I know you guys like, share your thoughts too. Yeah.
No, same. Like it was just so much fun. I mean, what was fun about it too was like, we got there on Friday and you start with like a table, right? Like just this open table and like this kind of like scuffed looking booth. And we're just standing there like, how do we make this into something? And then I think the final product was actually like gorgeous. We ended up with like this really nice booth. We had the mats up on display. It was very artistic. It was very warm and inviting. And then by the time we got our gym battles set up, it was just like this really kind of cool place to come for One Piece cards. Like it was like a little One Piece hub. And it was just fun having so many fans of the game come up, people in cosplay, check out the game. We had a bunch of new players who learned how to play. And overall, it was just like the weekend just flew by. Like, I was looking back, I was like, where did the weekend go? Because we were there every day, all day, and the whole time we were just like I would look and I'm like, what? It's already like 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
Like, where did the whole day go? Like, what have we been doing? So it was just it was amazing. And then obviously at the end we always go out and we have a feast in traditional One Piece fashion. So
every
we went
arc
out and ate and had ice cream. It was just like it was a great time from start to finish.
Yeah, we had so many wonderful friends who were coming out and helping for the weekend too that we were so happy. And like that's I think the one thing that if you guys ever come see us at our booths or whatever, you'll see is like we do this because we like hang out with each other and being crew together, and that's like, and I think people could see that from the booth. Like our booth was always full of just people, not just like people just crowding for the gym battle, but also sitting in the tables in front of us. That we were so lucky to have all these tables set up for like free games in front of us. But I think people really love the energy of just like we just like each other's company and we just love One Piece, and that's what we're here for.
Yeah, we were definitely in our element there. It was kind of like one of the best ways to bond with the community.
Yeah,
like face to face. It was incredible. We're so looking forward to doing this again in the future.
Yeah.
Some more cons.
So you got one coming up that's cool, no matter where it is in the world. Maybe not Antarctica. Let us know.
I'd be down.
Yeah, same.
Yo, penguins play One Piece.
Yeah.
Penguins play One Piece.
We're just like slowly putting the guard down because we're freezing.
Yeah, it's like,
Cool. June 12th, Bandai is coming up with an announcement for the One Piece TCG. They haven't provided any details, but major speculation is that it's a ban list. So, in the case that it is, what would be the best pick?
best pick or the ones that we are with the cards we
that
hate
everyone's
the
hoping
most? Yeah, so that announcement is June 12th, 7 a.m. our time EST. I want them to hit Giant. I feel bad about saying that, but I'm so mad at Giant sometimes. Gum Gum Giant, that is.
Just express yourself.
Yeah. Gum Gum Giant, if I didn't see you again, I wouldn't be that mad. I'd be kind of happy about it. But that's my hot take. I'm not seeing anything else that's like too obnoxious beyond that. And it feels like just a slight tuning that would hit the two popular Luffy decks just a little bit. And then you could still leave room for like, let's see what the starter decks do.
Yeah.
That's my opinion. But I don't see anything else that's much of an outlier otherwise.
Yeah, I think Giant's a good option. Honestly, I mean, I think the UP Luffy leader is actually an even better option, but I'm biased because I've been playing GP and loving the deck, and I'd be really sad if we never get, if our time with GP is so short because Giant gets banned, because that's one of the most fun decks I've played in this game. But I do think like UP Luffy seems too strong for sure. Yeah. But we actually have to see, like, I don't know if these starter decks are enough to kind of change up the meta, and to kind of like the deck just feels too strong out of the box, like to the point that when you're playing it, you're just like, oh, like what is this? Like, and GP has elements of that too, where once you're playing, you can start to play the deck, you're like, this kind of just feels too good.
Yep.
And so yeah, Giant is one way of hitting it. I do think like this leader doesn't always even need Giant. That's how strong it is. Because they play out a 9-drop and they leave up 1 Dawn, and there's other events you can play for 1 Dawn. They're not quite as good as Giant is, but the leader effect is actually what's strong here and what feels oppressive, and the fact that they ramp up and they play 9 costs, and they'll still be able to do that. And so I don't even think a Giant ban will make this leader, like will erase this leader, unfortunately. Yeah. So it's a little bit tricky, but I do think that is the one card that's ban worthy. I really can't think of anything else.
It does also limit the design space too, because it's such a powerful defense option for just any purple Straw Hat leader. Yeah. Yeah, but I don't think there's too much, I think. And also, we don't even know if it's a ban, so just like keep in mind, we're not saying it's a ban, but the timing of the announcement and just the history of Bandai and how they do announcements, it just seems likely to us, but we're not sure yet.
Yeah, well, it does seem like they've given answers to UP Luffy in 12. And Bandai has a habit of like printing the answer to something and then banning it anyway. So they might do that again too. But
they're just doing to like clean it up in hindsight.
Yeah. It's like, oh, the story, guys, which is good that they do that.
Yeah.
This is one of the few reasons why it's nice to be when Japan's in the future. This is one of the advantages of that.
That's true. We've always been lucky, like to not have to suffer through the Tier 0 format.
Yeah, Black Maria RP Law versus Lucci with NS Lobby. Yeah, we never we're thankful, Bandai. Thank you.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so I guess that's the end of this portion. Moving on, we have some exciting news. We've got final prototypes for our new deck boxes. coming in. So if you're not aware, we have a shop. We've got a bunch of playmats where we've worked with a bunch of different artists. They make beautiful art. We work with them to create playmats. We also try designing some deck boxes. I actually have a couple of them right here. So for example, this one is Law's Fruit deck box, right? So they're based off of the designs for each fruit. We started off with the Gum Gum deck box, of course. I don't know if this is coming in focus, but here's a quick idea. And Anel's Fruit. And next up, we're coming out with Ace's Fruit and Robin's Fruit. So they'll be orange and pinkish if you're looking for a general idea of what they'll look like. So stay tuned for more details on our socials.
I want the pink one so badly.
Oh yeah, the number of people who are
so
like,
nice.
I need that Robin deck box, and like the flower pattern on that pink came out so beautifully that I was like, when I saw it in person, the first prototype, like before the finalized one, which is gonna look even better, like I was surprised, like, wow, I didn't think it looked like this in person. This is like that, like Robin's fruit pattern is just so ornate and very like beautiful. So I'm very excited for that.
Yeah, it's just striking the way. And then you had it at Anime North, the prototype, and everyone was looking at it and like, oh, can I buy
that
this?
now?
And
And it's like, no, you gotta wait. So yeah, we will have some prototypes for you guys to see hopefully soon. And then the hopefully we'll get some kind of like, I think we'll be to get them done in manufacturing hopefully and get them shipped by like end of the summer. But stay tuned for news on Twitter. Yeah.
Yeah, and please continue to provide feedback and what you'd like to see. So many people wanted to see Ace's Fruit, which contributed to our decision to produce it. I know sometimes it feels like feedback is like yelling into the void, but we do read everything that comes our way, and we take that into consideration when we create our products.
Yeah.
Cool. That brings us to the end of this episode. Episode 3. That was awesome, guys.
Yeah.
All right, we'll see you next time for episode 4.
All right.
Take care.
Bye, guys.